after having a slower gaming year in 2023, I sorta hoped I'd be able to play more this year in 2024. But, well, the opposite happened. I certainly had a lot going on this year. I had a lot of fun and exciting adventures with my girlfriend. There were certainly some sad times too after the loss of my dog Lexi, which hit me pretty hard. It's also just been busy in general between work, figuring out the future, and trying to make time making these videos, which I really enjoy. So it makes sense the number is lower. All part of growing older, I guess. That all said, I still have almost 2 handfuls of games I've had the time to play a significant enough amount of to talk about and rank this year. I won't include anything I put on the list last year that I continued into this year, or anything I feel I didn't play enough of this year to rank, but I'll have an honorable and dishonorable mentions portion to briefly talk about those. Like last year, I will be taking some of my objective thoughts on the quality of these games into account with the rankings, but it's largely my personal subjective feelings that are driving the order of this list. So fasten your seatbelts, cause here's my top 9 games I played in 2024.
Number 9.
Jurassic Park for the NES starts off the bottom of this list. I played this as part of the Jurassic Park Classic Collection, and was drawn to this one first since it seemed like the easiest to jump into. But like with many NES games, while it was easy and simple to figure out at the start, its truly difficult nature very quickly showed its face. Luckily, I was in the mood for this challenge at the time, so I did manage to have fun pushing through this game thanks to the save states and the collection's rewind feature. If it weren't for those though, it would have been an absolutely miserable experience trying to make any progress in this game, since it's trying to make you fail at every corner. As a result, I don't think it's a particularly good or well-designed game, even though I did have some fun with it as a Jurassic Park fan, so it certainly is the weakest I played this year.
Number 8.
I'm a little sad I ended up putting Let's Build a Zoo this low on the list. I remember I was really excited to try this game after I was gifted it, as it looked like a really cute indie zoo builder similar to the original Zoo Tycoon. I was particularly excited about the animal fusions in the game, as that's a hilarious concept. And at first, I was definitely super pleased with the game, as it was giving me a pretty cozy vibe and seemed like it'd be a perfect game for me to play here and there when I wanted something less serious to play. It's definitely fun watching the animals do their thing and breeding different variants of them. Everything about the game feels very in-depth too, and you have lots of control over everything from the food the animals get, to transportation to your zoo, to which enclosures your zookeepers are responsible for. Admittedly, this aspect eventually started to be a bit too much for me though. I do love to micromanage in games like this, but here it feels it's practically a requirement, and if I wasn't on top of everything at all times, it felt my zoo would get quickly out of control. This definitely made it get a bit overwhelming and kinda killed the relaxing experience I was kinda looking for with this game. I also really didn't have much choice over what animals I could have in my zoo too, and was stuck with the limited options they'd offer at a time to trade for. So it hasn't really felt like a true zoo of my creation. I don't think it's a bad game, and I feel a bit harsh putting it this low on the list, and I still want to keep trying it out more, but it certainly didn't turn out the way I was hoping it would.
Number 7.
After my girlfriend and I finished up It Takes Two at the end of last year, we were eager to start our next co-op game. And Sackboy: A Big Adventure was what we gravitated to. We've admittedly have been making slow progress on it, but it's been a fun time every time we get around to playing it. It's easy to jump into, and isn't particularly difficult so far, but has some slight challenge on occasion. It certainly has the charm and personality you'd find in the Little Big Planet games, and it's definitely fun working together to get through the levels while also competing to get the high score. It's definitely a solid and fun co-op platformer that I feel makes a great family game. However, as I play it, I feel the game can't escape the shadow of Little Big Planet, and that kind of hinders the experience for me. Sure, this game is more complex in what you can do with Sackboy's abilities, and is trying to do its own thing with the character, but it definitely lacks the creative freedom that is the heart of all the Little Big Planet games. The character customization in this is fun, but it doesn't have the freedom Little Big Planet did. The ability to make your own levels is sorely missed too. I do feel I'm a bit harsh though, as this game isn't trying to be that, and I'm still having a fun time playing it with my girlfriend. But at the same time, I can't put the game higher than the following games on the list, due to my wish it was something more.
Number 6.
I'm glad I got around to trying Octodad, Deadliest Catch for the first time this year, as it was a very fun and short filler game for me. Usually I have a sort of loose plan on what games I want to play next, but this one was definitely a spontaneous pick, after my girlfriend told me I had to try it after seeing it in my game library. It's definitely a hilarious and wild ride trying to control the tentacles of an octopus disguising himself as a human to complete ordinary mundane tasks. I always heard it's a challenge to control Octodad, and it is in a way, but I quickly got the hang of it, for the most part. And the game doesn't punish you too much for mistakes, so you can still have fun, but enough so you don't completely flounder around mindlessly. There's definitely a lot of funny scenarios you're put into, and really my only complaint with this game is there just isn't enough of it. It definitely scratched the itch I had to play a short and fun game, and I can see myself returning to this one in the future if I want something light and comfortable to play. Even though this game is very enjoyable, it isn't as deep or as memorable as some of the others I played this year. And the next one beats it out in how much it made me laugh, even though it's a completely different experience.
Number 5.
I only got around to playing Lethal Company a couple times with my coworkers this year, but it really stuck out to me and made for some pretty memorable moments. This multiplayer game has you and your crewmates search abandoned facilities for materials to meet a quota, and they are always filled with horrific creatures that are generally out to kill you. A combination of the proximity chat, the time limit you have to meet your quota, and the fact you're pretty much defenseless most of the time makes for some really tense moments. Oftentimes, you'll not know if someone died or if they're just too far away, increasing the tension when you're alone. Despite the spooky nature of the game, it somehow works to be an absolutely hilarious time too. A lot of the time, you'll die in the dumbest ways, or with incredibly comedic timing.
Alright, now do what I did. Walk on the railing. Don't overjump it though.
And he overjumped.
And when you're dead, you get to spectate your living crew members and watch them panic as the chaos unfolds. This is definitely a game not made to take too seriously, and you're pretty much guaranteed to fail eventually, but it's fun seeing how far you can get and see what goofy shenanigans you can do with the money you make before the ramped up difficulty eventually brings your crew to your inevitable doom. This game is one I think a lot of my friends who don't own it already would enjoy, and it's definitely one I'm hoping to continue playing when I can in the new year.
Number 4.
Return of the Obra Dinn is probably the most unique game I played this year by far. Between its very distinct graphical style and its detective-based gameplay, I've never played anything like this before. The thing that really makes this game shine is the extreme attention to detail in every scene that really ties everything together as you're trying to figure out what happened to the ship and crew. All the details and continuity really brings the story of the ship to life and makes it feel lived in, despite only seeing a still moment in time for each death. It was fun piecing everything together yourself and using all the clues to determine who is who. However, it does get pretty difficult determining the more obscure members towards the end that really require you to catch on to some pretty small and hidden details, to the point where I had to look some things up and make some wild guesses. That said, if I was more patient, I may have been able to figure it out myself too, so that complaint may be on me. From a critical aspect alone, this game would definitely be a contender for the #1 spot, as it's incredibly well made and a super engaging experience, but I personally feel I had more enjoyment with a few more games I played this year. Before we get into the top 3, it's time for the
Honorable and Dishonorable Mentions.
First off, I've been continuing to make slow progress in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm still absolutely loving it. But since it was on the list last year, it has to go here instead. I was really hyped about the re-release of the original Star Wars Battlefronts this year, since they're both childhood favorites of mine. I got the collection day one and was sadly disappointed. The first worked fine for the most part, besides them messing up my favorite sound effect, but the second was definitely a buggy mess and just didn't feel like it controlled right. I didn't even bother trying the online since I heard it wasn't working, and I decided to leave it be after that first day to wait for it to be fixed, and then just kinda forgot about it. I do want to give it a go again now that it's supposedly in a better state, but for this year, it definitely belongs in this bin. Fortnite is another from last year I played a decent amount of again, and I especially got invested in the Avatar The Last Airbender and Star Wars events they did. After those though, I didn't touch the game too much and moved on to others, but it was definitely a fun time playing more this year. But since it was on the list last year, it belongs here. Palworld was another I got excited for when it came out because it looked fun from the videos I saw, and the fact it's pretty much a combo of Ark and Pokemon without moral restrictions definitely humored my mischievous gamer dark side. However, after getting into it a little, I realized it wasn't running well on my computer, and the frame rate was awful unless I put it on the lowest settings, so I gave up on it. I do want to try it again now the PS5 version is out, since it still seems super fun, but sadly because of my rough experience with it this year, it unfortunately has to go here. Pokemon White 2 is another game I started this year, and like all Pokemon games, I'm enjoying it so far. I admittedly barely have made it past the first gym though, since I got a bit sidetracked with other games, so I don't feel I've played it enough yet to include it on the list. So for this year, it'll just have to go here. And of course, I played some of my regular ongoing games I play every year, which always belong here. Now that we got those out of the way, it's back to the main list we go.
Number 3.
Astrobot is a very late addition to the list as I only got it recently for my birthday, but it's definitely been a blast to play so far. At the time of writing this, I'm still rather early on in the game, but I can definitely see why it got the incredibly positive reception it got. It seems to perfectly translate the fun of old 3D platformers into the modern era. It feels like almost everything in the levels have some way you can interact with it, so it feels really rewarding to explore and play around with everything you see. This game is definitely a technical marvel, and I've already been blown away a few times from things you can do in the game, and it kind of fulfills some childhood dreams of mine of how games could be in the future. All the references with the collectible bots you find are great too, and even if you don't understand their references, it's still fun to see what they do when you interact with them. I can definitely see this being well regarded as a classic in the future, and I'm excited to continue playing this as the year closes. It's probably the highest quality game I played this year, but the next two have a slight edge due to personal bias, as they are from series that are closer to my heart.
Number 2.
Fire Emblem is one of my favorite game series, and Path of Radiance is one I've wanted to play for a very long time, and I'm glad I was finally able to start it this year. I'm about 2/3 the way through, and so far I'm thinking this might be in my top 3 for the series. In many ways, it feels very similar to the simplicity of the GBA games in its structure and gameplay, but also implements new additions that would become staples in future games like abilities. I feel this game has even more of an emphasis on strategy compared to others in the series, as it throws a lot more variety of objectives at you to make you play differently each chapter, and really think about how to approach each level. However, where this game shines most is its story and writing. The world building is great, and I'm always excited to learn more about it. The characters all seem to be pretty complex and deep, and I like how even the ones who don't get a lot of screen time in the main story still get some moments to develop between battles. I've really enjoyed how the gameplay and story meld together too, and really makes it feel like you're going from a ragtag group of mercenaries struggling to survive to a major player in the war engulfing the land. Even though I haven't seen it fully through yet, this game easily has the best story from all I've played this year. Although, admittedly, it wasn't a huge competition. I probably would have had it finished if it weren't for a bit of a road bump with a scratch on the disc, and then getting distracted with a couple shiny new games. I'm really excited to finish this game up though, and it definitely reminded me of why I love the series. It was in the number 1 spot for a decent chunk of the year, but the next one swooped in late to take the lead.
Number 1.
Even though I've yet to finish Tears of the Kingdom, I just had to take a pause on that and the other games I was playing to delve into The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom when it released. I was really excited to jump into this one, as it has a very unique twist on the Zelda experience by having you play as Princess Zelda for the first time in the series and introducing a whole new combat system where you have to summon objects and monsters to fight enemies. This system also allows you to traverse the landscape in new and interesting ways, and really makes it feel like you're breaking the boundaries of the map and forging your own path. I do like how the game mixed the philosophy of the newer games, giving the player the freedom to play and progress in the way they choose, while also still feeling like it follows the classic Zelda structure. There are so many unique ways for you to use your abilities that really makes it feel like your playthrough is unique to you, and you're coming up with your own solution to the challenges and puzzles. The story isn't necessarily as great as some of the others in the series in my opinion, but I was still engrossed in it, and found it pretty wholesome while having some cool and memorable moments too. This is definitely the fastest I've played a game that isn't on the shorter end in a while too, with it only taking me a couple of months, which I know isn't that fast, but for me these days it is. While I certainly have a lot of bias due to The Legend of Zelda being my favorite game series, I do feel all around this is the game I had the most fun with this year. It was a really joyful adventure that I had a lot of fun messing around with its mechanics to create some hilarious and memorable experiences. I always have a fun time reflecting on the games I played over the year, and even though I wasn't able to play as much, I still cherish the time I was able to game in 2024 amidst everything else both good and bad. And now, naturally my thoughts drift into what gaming adventures I'll have in the new year. There's definitely a bit I anticipate will be going on for me in the new year, so it may be another slower gaming year for me again, at least at the start. There's certainly a lot I want to play though, both with what's been sitting in my backlog for a while, in addition to new games I've gotten at the end of the year. And of course, I want to continue and finish some of my ongoing gaming adventures too. So, will I manage to play more in 2025? Or will I have even less in next year's list? Guess you'll have to smash that subscribe button to find out. Even if it's a slower gaming year, I definitely have some reviews I still have to catch up on, as well as some other video ideas I hope to get to too. I definitely haven't been making videos at the speed I want to, and I have been rethinking of how I want to approach them a bit, but I do hope eventually once things settle down with my life goals for the year, I'll be able to release more. No matter what, I'm excited for the new year though, and I can't wait to share my gaming adventures more with you all. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a fun time gaming in 2025.